Well, guys, it is now time for my Week 4 picks of the 2025 NFL season. As last week, I went 10-6, quite a big downgrade from the week before, but still off to a very strong start this year. I'm very happy about that. Wish I could have done better, though. Anyways, here's the regular season and the playoff stands this season today. In the AFC, it's the Chargers with the bye, with Ravens at Bills, Jaguars at Colts, and Steelers at Bengals. And the NFC, it's the Eagles with the bye, with Seahawks at 49ers, Vikings at Buccaneers, and Cardinals at Packers. And my Super Bowl prediction right now is the Bills over the Eagles. Alright, so now let's get to my Week 4 picks, as it's off of a big NFC West matchup on Thursday night. Also, I think next week's the other NFC West matchup. Anyways, it's the Seahawks at the Cardinals. As the Seahawks won the last 7, the Cardinals haven't beaten them since 2021, and they haven't won at home against them since 2020. As whoever wins will have the second spot in the NFC West. So the Seahawks completely destroyed the Saints, but are we really surprised and such? Cardinals, meanwhile, hard-fought defensive game against the 49ers, but they couldn't get the job done in the end. As, oh boy, this is a tough one. But right now, especially after the last week's game, I think I trust the Seahawks more, so I'm going to pick them. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Cardinals get it. Alright, then we get to the Sunday action, starting off with the first of the International Series games, and the first game in Ireland. Actually, no, it wasn't the first International Series game, Brazil. But first game in Ireland, as it's the Vikings at the Steelers for the first time since 2017. The Vikings won the last one, the Steelers haven't beaten them since 2017, and the Vikings haven't beaten the Steelers on the road since 1995. So, the Vikings, of course, they had Carson Wentz start instead of Desmond Ridder as the cute backup for J.J. McCarthy out for injury. And oh my goodness God, completely destroyed the Bengals. I'm not surprised they beat them, but the way they beat them, oh my goodness. That was insane. Can they keep that momentum up though? As they got to go up against the Steelers, who had a hard-fought game against the Patriots and still barely won that too in the end. Oh geez. I know the Vikings looked very impressive at that victory, but that might have been just a fluke, though. I doubt they'll be able to keep that momentum up for long and such. Oh boy, this one is a tough choice, but I think I'll still pick the Steelers for this one. And then it's the Commanders at the Falcons for the first time since 2023. As the Commanders won the last 4, the Falcons haven't beaten them since 2018, and the Falcons haven't won home against them since 2015. So the Commanders put up a track meet against the Raiders, and I didn't even know about Jaden Daniels not playing because I think he was announced he wasn't going to play until the day after my picks and such, so I thought he was going to play, but Marcus Mariota, it didn't matter as they trounced the Raiders. Meanwhile, the Falcons, oh my goodness God, they got shut out 30-0 against the Panthers, and Michael Penix looked like dog shit. Oh, that was a sour taste watching that game. Oh God, that was a horrible sight. So, yeah, I'm going to pick the Commanders for this one. So much for thinking this was going to be a good game early on in the beginning of the year. Then it's the Chargers at the Giants for the first time since 2017. The Chargers won the last 5. The Giants haven't beaten them since 1998. And they haven't won at home against the Chargers since 1986. As the Chargers try to go 4-0 for the first time since 2002, the Giants are trying to avoid 0-4 for the first time since 2020. So, the Chargers, hard-fought game, beat the Broncos once again on a last-second field goal. How about that? They're 3-0 in the AFC West so far. Good start in that regard, as they got a big lead, too, against everyone in that division, which they need right now. Giants, meanwhile, as they got kind of spanked by the Chiefs. Are we really surprised, though? And now, Jackson Dart is going to start this week, and oh, boy. Going up against probably one of the Super Bowl contenders, oh, that's going to suck. And it's going to probably depend on how he plays, but I'm going to pick the Chargers for this one. And then the battle of teams without a win, as it's the Titans at the Texans. The Texans won the last one. The Titans haven't beaten them since last year, and the Texans haven't won at home against the Titans since last year. The Titans are trying to avoid 0-4 for the first time since, I believe, 2009. The Texans are trying to avoid 0-4 for the first time since 2020. So the Titans, of course, got ran over by the Colts. What else is new? The Texans, meanwhile, lost the defensive game to the Jaguars as C.J. Stroud looked like garbage whatsoever, and they looked bad, as both teams looked like complete and utter crap. But I trust Stroud more than I do Ward, so I'm going to pick the Texans for this one. Then we get to a huge NFC matchup as it's the Eagles at the Buccaneers for the third year in a row, actually. As the Buccaneers won the last one, the Eagles haven't beaten them since 2023. As the Eagles try to go 4-0 for the first time since 2023, Buccaneers try to go 4-0 for the first time since 2005. So the Eagles, oh my god, they were getting spanked by the Chiefs, and then they pull off that massive comeback in the end, especially that blocked field goal. Oh my god, last week of all the blocked field goals, that was insane. So, managed to stay alive for another week. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers barely, almost had to pull off a comeback against the Jets as well. Oh boy, that was close, as they almost blew it as well, like the Eagles. So far, the Buccaneers have this year been comeback teams so far every single week. Not good for momentum strike. You need to start blowing out teams regularly and such. Tough game, though. How funny enough, too. Rematch from week 4 like last year. But I think I still would trust the Buccaneers more for this one, so I'm going to keep that going. Then it's the Panthers at the Patriots for the first time since 2017. Patriots won the last one. The Panthers haven't beaten them since 2017. The Patriots haven't won home against them since 2009. As the Panthers shut out the Falcons in a defensive effort, as Bryce Young didn't really do much. And the Patriots, hard-fought game against the Steelers, but couldn't get the job done when they could have if they didn't have all those turnovers in the end zone. That was an easy victory. They blew and such. I don't trust the Panthers, though. I'm sure that was just a fluke victory against the Falcons, so I'm going to pick the Patriots for this one. Then it's the Saints at the Bills for the first time since 2017, as the Bills won the last one. The Saints haven't beaten them since 2017, and the Bills haven't won home against the Saints since 1983. As the Saints try to avoid 0-4 for the first time since 2012, the Bills are trying to go to 4-0 for the first time since 2020. As the Saints got destroyed by the Seahawks, what else is new? The Bills, of course, beat the Dolphins on Thursday night, as they have one of the best offenses in the league, and yeah, obviously, I'm going to pick the Bills for this one. Then it's the Browns at the Lions for the first time since 2017. The Browns won the last one. The Lions haven't beaten them since 2017, and the Browns haven't won Detroit since 1983. So the Browns, how about that beautiful defensive effort against the Packers, then the blocked field goal for the win? I swear the Browns have the best defense in the league, if only it wasn't for the fact they allowed so many points. Their defense in terms of yards is elite. They remind me a lot of like the Titans last year. Oh my goodness, their defense is elite, just like 2023. Meanwhile, the Lions, hard-fought game against the Ravens, and their defense showed up in the end, too, in the fourth quarter, as they got the needed victory right there, as they have one of the best offense in the league. It'll be very curious to see what the Lions' offense against the Browns' defense is going to be. Very, very curious. But I'm going to pick the Lions for this one because I do not trust the Browns' offense whatsoever. Alright, then we get to the 4 p.m. games. Start off with a big out-of-conference matchup record-wise, but I don't think it's impressive, as it's the Jaguars at the 49ers for the first time since 2017. The 49ers won the last 5. The Jaguars haven't beaten them since 2005, and they've never won on the road against the 49ers, as the 49ers try to go 4-0 for the first time since 2023. The Jaguars, hard-fought defensive game against the Texans, but they haven't really impressed me much yet. Meanwhile, the 49ers, hard-fought defensive game against the Cardinals. Again, though, they haven't really impressed me yet. I think the 49ers so far have been like the weakest 3-0 team right now, as Mac Jones did not play that impressively this last week. Neither team is really impressing me right now whatsoever. But I still trust the 49ers more, so I'm going to pick them. Then we get to a huge outer conference matchup with the actual stakes on the line, unlike the last game, as it's the Colts at the Rams for the first time since 2017. The Rams won the last 4. The Colts haven't beaten them since 2009, as the Colts try to go 4-0 for the first time since 2009. And the Colts, in terms of overall stats, they're probably one of the most balanced teams in the league, as all their stats are top 10 or less. I mean, top 10 or better. One of the best offenses in the league, too, as they ran over the Titans, as they are just being a surprise team so far in a good way this year, in my eyes, as they keep steamrolling it. Meanwhile, the Rams, they were doing their job against the Eagles like I predicted they would do, and then they completely choked down the end, and that blocked field goal, too, didn't help matters either, too. That really, really deflated them in my eyes. But this is still a tough game. This is going to be the Colts' real tough task other than the Broncos. Oh boy. Tough one. But right now, I think I'm going to have to pick the Colts. I think I trust them more than the Rams right now. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams got still. Alright, then it's the Bears at the Raiders for the first time since 2021. As the Bears won the last 2. The Raiders haven't beaten them since 2019. As the Bears, completely dismantled the Cowboys, and Caleb Williams looked like elite with those 4 touchdowns. What? And all of a sudden the Bears have a good offense, as we can see right now? Or at least a pretty average offense, or pretty solid offense. Their defense still sucks, though. The Raiders, meanwhile, got ran over by the Commanders, even though Geno Smith put up 3 touchdowns in the end, so he had a good game at least, even though it was garbage time. A game between 2 teams I really don't fully trust that much. Oh, boy. Oh, boy, this might be a bold choice, and it's kind of like a coin toss, but I'm going to pick the Bears for this one. But if the Raiders get it, I wouldn't be surprised. Alright, then we get to the another AFC matchup, as it's the Ravens at the Chiefs for the 2nd year in a row. The Chiefs won the last one. The Ravens haven't beaten them since 2021. They haven't won in Kansas City since 2012. As the Ravens, they were put up a good fight against the Lions, but their offense was shut down in the 4th quarter when it mattered, as Derrick Henry once again fumbled, and they just couldn't do anything, as their defense is one of the worst in the league, and their offense, so far, even though they're number 1 offense in points, they're not getting a lot of yards so far, so it's kind of weird. Meanwhile, the Chiefs got their needed victory against the Giants, but they still weren't really impressive. Have not been very impressive whatsoever, so I'm actually going to pick the Ravens for this one, even though 1 and 2, still trust them and such. Then we get to the Sunday night matchup, which shouldn't have been there, as it's the Packers at the Cowboys for the first time since 2019, I believe, as the Packers won the last 3. The Cowboys haven't beaten them since 2016, and they haven't won home against the Packers since 2007. So the Packers got shut down offensively against the Browns, showing why the Browns are an elite defense, but the Packers still have an elite defense too. Meanwhile, the Cowboys got ran over by the Bears, as just nothing went their way. Dak Prescott sucked ass and such. And yeah, I'm going to pick the Packers for this one. Alright, then we get to the 2 Monday night games, which play at the same time, which I freaking hate immensely. Start off with the Jets at the Dolphins, as the Jets won the last one. The Dolphins haven't beaten them since 2014, and the Jets haven't won in Miami since 2015, even though that was a London game. The last time really was 2014. The Jets try to avoid 0-4 for the first time since 2020. Dolphins are trying to avoid 0-4 for the first time since 2019. So the Jets, hard-fought game against the Buccaneers, almost pulled off the upset, but couldn't get the job done in the end. As I'm wondering, is Justin Fields playing now because of the concussion? It's been 2 weeks now. Didn't look that up yet. Meanwhile, the Dolphins, of course, hard-fought game against the Bills, but couldn't get the job done in the end. But regardless who starts for the Jets at quarterback, I'm going to pick the Dolphins for this one. And then we finally wrap it up, which would have been a good matchup, but now it's not, as it's the Bengals at the Broncos for the first time since 2021. The Bengals won the last 2. The Broncos haven't beaten them since 2018, and they haven't won home against them since 2015. As the Bengals got completely run over by the Vikings, and their 2-1 start shown to be a fraud, as they are just terrible at everything so far. Meanwhile, the Broncos, again, another hard-fought game where they lost on the last-second field goal. They could have been 3-0 right now if things went differently for them. That shows how it's kind of like the Ravens, too, in that regard. But I'm going to pick the Broncos, obviously, for this one, and that wraps up my picks, as I cannot wait for Seahawks at Cardinals night, even though I'm going to miss a part of it because of my job. So anyways, it's going to be the Seahawks over the Cardinals, the Steelers over the Vikings, the Commanders over the Falcons, the Chargers over the Giants, the Texans over the Titans, the Buccaneers over the Eagles, the Patriots over the Panthers, the Bills over the Saints, the Lions over the Browns, the 49ers over the Jaguars, the Colts over the Rams, the Bears over the Raiders, the Ravens over the Chiefs, the Packers over the Cowboys, the Dolphins over the Jets, and Broncos over the Bengals. Alright, so see you all next week for my Week 5 picks.